Good evening. Thank you for joining me. Start with the verse of the Kesa. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. I wear the Tathagata's teaching, freeing all creations. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. I wear the Tathagata's teaching, freeing all creations. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. I wear the Tathagata's teaching, freeing all creations. Gata of Atonement. All evil karma ever committed by me since of old, on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of my body, mouth, and thought, now I atone for it all. All evil karma ever committed by me since of old, on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of my body, mouth, and thought, now I atone for it all. All evil karma ever committed by me since of old, on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of my body, mouth, and thought, now I atone for it all. Fragrance of this incense invites the awakened mind to be present. It fills our sacred space, guards our minds from wrong thinking. Fragrance of this incense unites us with virtue, mindfulness, and wisdom. We offer it on behalf of all beings. Homage to the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. I go to the Buddha for refuge. Being one with the Buddha, I resolve to each day follow the way of life he laid down for us to walk and awaken to his supreme wisdom. I go to the Dharma for refuge. Being one with the Dharma, the gates of Dharma are manifold, I vow to enter them all. The goal of wisdom is ever beyond, I shall attain it. I go to the Sangha for refuge. Being one with the Sangha, in the spirit of universal fellowship, and as a member of the Sangha, I pledge to strive for the enlightenment of all beings. The Metta Sutta. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove. Wishing in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short, or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with the boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upward to the skies and downward to the depths, outward and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will. Whether standing or walking, sitting or lying down, free from drowsiness, one should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding. By not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into the world of suffering. May I be happy and well. May no harm come to me. May I learn compassion. May all my friends, family, and those I love be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all those troubled in body, mind, and spirit be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all those who have hurt me in body, mind, and spirit be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all those I have hurt in body, mind, and spirit be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all my enemies be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all living beings be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. Hi, Chris and Marianne and Justice. All right, Justice, yeah. Good to see you. So we're going to do a 20-minute guided meditation. Take a few deep breaths. Let your belly be soft. Lungs filling and emptying completely. And let your breath settle into a comfortable rhythm. Don't breathe any special way, but be aware of your breath. Breathing in, know that you're breathing in. Breathing out, know that you're breathing out. we'll develop goodwill tonight. So be metta bhavana, cultivating goodwill. So as you're exhaling, just let this thought ride silently on your breath, as if it were coming from your heart as you breathe out. May I be happy and well. May I be free from animosity. May I be free from stress and affliction. May I look after myself with ease. And call to mind a loved one. Maybe a parent, spouse, child, sibling, someone you care for very deeply. And let your goodwill arise for them, your hopes for their well-being, and send them the thought, may they be happy. And you can think of their name. If you'd like, you can imagine that thought as a light or a warmth radiating out from your heart to touch them with your hope for their well-being. May they be happy. May they be happy and well. May they be free from animosity. free from stress and affliction. May they look after themselves with ease. And call to mind a good friend. May they be happy and well. May they be free from animosity. May they be free from stress and affliction. May they look after themselves with ease. And call to mind an acquaintance, someone you're neutral toward. And keep in mind that your job here in this meditation, your task, is not to problem solve or analyze, simply to have goodwill, to develop goodwill so that you can receive the world with your hopes for its well being. So may your acquaintance be happy and well. May they be free from animosity. May they be free from stress and affliction. May they look after themselves with ease. And call to mind an adversary, someone you don't like or that you're not getting along with. You don't have to like them and you don't have to get along with them. But it will help you to have goodwill for them, to be able to greet difficulty with friendliness. May they be happy and well. May they be free from animosity. May they be free from stress and affliction. And may they look after themselves with ease. And bear in mind that people who are stressed, afflicted, who are difficult, they're reacting from greed, from hatred, from delusion. And we all have those things, we all deal with those things. So you're really wishing them to be free from greed, hatred, and delusion. May they be happy and well. May all beings be happy and well. May all beings be free from animosity. May all beings be free from stress and affliction. May all beings look after themselves with ease. Buddha nature pervades the whole universe, existing right here now, and reciting the sutras, hearing the dharma, and training the mind. Great merit is attained. We dedicate this merit to the great Master Shakyamuni Buddha, the all-pervading and everlasting three treasures, all ancestors of the Sangha, and all beings in the Dharma world. May the Dharma body maintain strength and health, and years of life be lengthened for all teachers of this Sangha. Let their vows be fully realized, and may they live in perfect peace with Buddha Dharma. We pray for the health and well-being of all those suffering from diseases of body, mind, or spirit, and those ministering to the sick and the grieving. We pray for those suffering from violence, for the oppressed, the imprisoned, and for all refugees. May they be serene through all their troubles, and may we realize the enlightened way together. Sabe sata sadahantu avera sukajivino katang punya phalang maihang sabe bagi bhavantu te. May all beings always live happily, free from animosity. May all share in the blessings springing from the good we have done. Well, thank you all for being here. I need these. Can't tell whether I should have my glasses on or off. So some of you might have noticed if you were watching me meditate instead of meditating, I checked. I was keeping an eye on the posts, and I had to remove someone because there's somebody who's basically cyberbullying, cyber stalking somebody that is close to me, and going places and posting that this individual is homophobic and stuff like that, which they're not by any means, but the person is not well, So may they be happy and well, and also may their stuff get removed quickly from anything I'm doing. So if you notice, I only mention this because if you notice somebody posting nonsense about someone in our Facebook group or Instagram or Twitter or anything, just let me know so that I can boot them. They're quite annoying about it, but they're obviously not well, and it's too bad. And I hope that they get the help they need. But in the meantime, we do what we can to keep them out of the posts. So I was looking for something, and I don't remember what I was looking for, but I came across this story. It's one of the back stories about some verses, a verse in the Dhammapada. And it's kind of a cool little story, but it sort of relates very indirectly to something else that I'm kind of working through, being able to sort of explain with people. And so I want to share with you this story because it's kind of cool, and then we'll talk about it. So the Buddha was staying in Varanasi, and he told this story. He said once there was a Naga king. So Nagas is described in this book as dragons, but they're basically giant, sort of big mythic snakes. The Naga king, a Naga king, protected the Buddha from the rain while he was meditating by spreading his like cobra-like hood over the Buddha to protect him from the rain and stuff like that. If you go to White Florida Dhammaram, there's a big nagas out front, these gigantic serpent-looking creatures. And you'll see those a lot of Thai temples and that sort of stuff. So there was a Naga king by the name of Arakapada. Not sure I'm saying that right, but I think so, from where the accents are not, Arakapada. And so in one of his past existences during the time of Kassapa Buddha, so we had a big talk about this at the prison the other day. The only historical Buddha that we're aware of is Sakyamuni, that one. The Buddha, who was born about 2,600 years ago, was a king in northern India, et cetera, et cetera. Most of you probably know the story. And so that is the founder of Buddhism. But, when Buddhism, we sort of see the cosmos as being this thing that's beginningless and endless. It's eternal. So I think that the universe we're in, the world we're in, is considered to be 14 billion years old. Somebody who's really into that stuff might know better, but I think it's 14 billion. I think it's what I read recently. Well, that's an inconceivably long time. But who's to say that there weren't 14 billion universes just like this one before us, right? And who's to say that, space is infinite. So who's to say, oh, God damn it. Sorry. Who's to say, that there are not another 14 billion universes out there already, right? So, I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh, but anyway, so if you read the Lotus Sutra, it talks about this. It talks about how there are an infinite number of worlds, and all of these worlds have Buddhas. And so Sakyamuni is our Buddha, is the historical Buddha, the one and only historical Buddha in this universe, or at least in this world. Um, but uh, uh, but there were Buddhas before him, and the idea, and Buddha, a Buddha, in a sort of grander sense, is enlightenment itself, is awakening itself. So, which is eternal and forever and unconditioned. This is the idea here. So, Kassapa Buddha had was a Buddha from a previous time, a previous era. And so this monk had done some minor offense, and as a result of this was reborn a Naga. So being reborn a Naga is not all that bad, but you can't become enlightened if you're not a human being. Some exceptions to that in the cosmology, but at any rate. And so as a Naga, he was waiting for the appearance of a Buddha again. And so Arakapada, this Naga, had a beautiful daughter, and he decided that he would use her as a means of finding a Buddha. And so he made it known that whoever could answer, he gave her some questions to ask. He said, whoever could answer these questions, could marry this beautiful daughter. And so twice a month, he'd have her go out and dance and sing out in the village square or whatever it was. And suitors would come to ask her, to try to answer her questions and try to claim her, as their wife. But none could give the correct answer. Well, one day the Buddha was aware of this, and he saw this young man named Uttara in a vision. And he knew that Uttara was ready to attain stream entry and connection with the questions, and that he could do this if he were presented with these questions that Arakapada was asking. And so he was on his way to see this woman, I guess this Naga, who was appearing as a woman, I suppose. It doesn't explain in the story. It's a fairy tale, right? A parable. And so the Buddha intercepted him and said, here, taught him how to answer the questions, gave him the questions, explained the answers to him, what they meant, and all this kind of stuff. And as a result of listening, having this conversation with the Buddha, he was awakened. So, and now that he was awakened, now that he had attained stream entry, he was no longer interested in the Naga princess. But the Buddha said, no, go on and answer the questions, because you need to do this. It will be beneficial for a number of other beings if you go and answer her questions. And so he does. So he goes to her, and she asks the questions, and the questions, for the first question is, who is a ruler? And the second one is one who is overwhelmed by the mist of moral defilements to be called a ruler. The third one is, what ruler is free from moral defilements? And the fourth one is, what sort of person is to be called a fool? So, who is a ruler? Is one who is overwhelmed by the mist of moral defilements to be called a ruler? What ruler is free from moral defilements, and what sort of person is to be called a fool? So, in other words, who's really a king? Who can you say is in charge of anything, and or has some control over anything? Is someone who's overwhelmed by the mist of moral defilements, is what they use here. So the idea is that, that if you are acting out of greed, hatred, delusion, misunderstanding, then that's what he's talking about with moral defilements. Lack of virtue. Is someone who is overwhelmed by an absence of virtue, could they be called a ruler? And what ruler is free from moral defilements? and what sort of person is to be called a fool. And so the answers to the questions were that the one who controls the six senses is a ruler, one who is overwhelmed by the mist of moral defilements, overwhelmed by greed, hatred, and delusion, can't be a ruler. One who is free from craving is a ruler. So the ruler who is free from craving is also free from from lack of virtue, from greed, hatred, and ignorance. And a person who hankers after sensual pleasures is called a fool. So, this can be a little confusing because we all hanker after sensual pleasures. I mean, I made dinner tonight. It's pretty good. I liked it. I'll probably make it again. But that's not what this is talking about. It means thinking that happiness comes from fulfilling, sensual desires rather than from spiritual purpose. And so, having had the correct answers to the above, the Naga princess sang out the questions regarding the floods of sensual desire, of renewed existence of false doctrine and ignorance, and how they can be overcome. And Uttara, this young man, answered the questions as they were taught him by the Buddha. So when the Naga, Irakapada, heard these answers, he knew that a Buddha had appeared in the world. And so he asked Uttara to take him to the Buddha. And on seeing the Buddha, Irakapada related to the Buddha how he had been a monk during the time of Kassapa Buddha, and how he had accidentally caused a blade of grass to be broken off while traveling in a boat. And he had worried over that little offense for having failed to do the act of exoneration as prescribed. He had broken a blade of grass, and he hadn't apologized properly or done whatever was expected of him. And because of that, he was reborn a Naga. And after hearing his story, the Buddha told him it's very difficult to be born in the human world and to be born during an appearance of the Buddhas or during the time of the teaching. And then he said this. He said, hard to gain birth as a human. Hard is the life of mortals. Hard to get is the opportunity of hearing the dharma. Hard it is for a Buddha to appear. And the above discourse benefited numerous beings. Irakapada, being a Naga, couldn't become a stream enterer right then and there, but presumably, it doesn't say, but presumably having heard this and understood this and had this conversation with the Buddha, in a future existence, he was able to become awakened. So this is an interesting little piece. There's a couple of things about it that kind of, in the context of of the other stuff that I'm working with right now, which is really kind of trying to help people come to grips with Jodo Shinshu Buddhism. I'm talking to the inmates about that, and we just read the Tana Show and the Thursday night group and that sort of thing. And so looking at this and thinking in terms of why the Mahayana exists and why Pure Land Buddhism came along, why Shenron said, I can't do this. I can't do the path of the sages, the sort of, controlling all six senses and being able to overcome completely the mist of moral defilements and all of that and be liberated in that way. I can't do that. But there's got to be a way forward for people who can't do that. And so that's where a lot of Mahayana Buddhism comes from, particularly Pure Land Buddhism, where, okay, there's another Buddha besides Kassapa in the past who came about because someone said there needs to be a way forward for ordinary beings who can't complete the path of the sages and become arahants. And how do you do that? And so, he made this vow to that if anyone really, surrendered to his compassion, opened up, made themselves available to his compassion, Amitabha Buddha's compassion, they'd be reborn in the Pure Land. So, when we look at something like this, like, okay, in order in order to be completely awakened, we have to control the six senses. That's difficult. And it's confusing to think in terms of that. In fact, you could conceivably, what the Buddha taught, let's just be open about it. In the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path and all that kind of stuff, a lot of what he was teaching to the monks was to not get snared by the senses, to not get hooked by these things that arose and that hook you. And yet, we live in the world. And so in Mahayana Buddhism, in Zen, samsara is nirvana. This is what we've got. So if we're going to have nirvana, we got to have it here. In Pure Land Buddhism, we don't have to do all this stuff ourselves. There is no self to do it all by. We need to be. We can have faith in oneness, that we can be buoyed up by it and that sort of thing. But these instructions, are not useless. We can recognize that our suffering is going to result from things that we perceived. And then we can be careful about how we react. We can, recognize that space between when something comes into our consciousness and what we do in response to it, right? We can, we don't have to be overwhelmed by the things that come up, by the moral defilements. But I hate that terminology. But recognizing that we get pulled this way and that by all kinds of things. Our minds really latch on to stuff very easily, and it's real easy to get hooked by anger, hooked by misunderstanding, hooked by desire, by greed. And so, if you can recognize that and not let that overwhelm you, notice when you've been hooked, okay, and then let it go. Don't stay hooked. Don't compound it. Then over time, you won't not have cravings, probably, but you won't be subject to them as much. And you'll recognize that pursuing sensual pleasure, as a source of happiness is not it. Doesn't mean that you can't enjoy life. Of course you can enjoy life. It's very, very, humans are wired to like stuff, to like food and like drink and like, all kinds of things, but that's all right. But we just need to recognize, to what extent those are helpful and what extent those are harmful, and be realistic and rational about that. And then I think an important part of that, and this is where the Pure Land teachings come in, is to accept ourselves as we are and not condemn ourselves because we have cravings, because we have desires, because anger arises, because we misunderstand things. We get hung up on something and then realize much later that what we were hung up on wasn't worth having. Or we misunderstand things. We're irrational about stuff. And so, I think I mentioned last time I was reading this book by Taitetsu Uno called River of river of water, river of fire. And it's interesting, he draws a lot of parallels between Jodo Shinshu Buddhism and various doctrines of forgiveness, such as in Christianity. And it's kind of a little bit eye-opening to look at that, the way he presents it, because I've had kind of a struggle. A lot of people, I think, have struggled a little bit with the idea of, you do whatever you want to and then go to church and ask for forgiveness and all's good, you get to go to heaven. And I don't like that in the sort of superficial version of Pure Land Buddhism either. It's to say Namo Amida Butsu and suddenly all of my sins are forgotten and I get to be born in the Pure Land. I don't quite buy that. But if I recognize that I am supported compassionately by the universe, regardless of what dumb stuff, as a result of my greed and my anger and my delusion, that I do really dumb things, and yet I am still a recipient of compassion of the universe. I'm still supported in countless ways, right? Then maybe there's hope for me after all. Yeah. And so kind of the first step in not being, not the first step, but one important step in not being overwhelmed by these things is to accept that you're subject to them. Accept yourself as you are, as a human being. And, the reason that the Naga couldn't be awakened is that he wasn't a human being. Human beings can be enlightened. And part of the reason we can be enlightened is that we can be that messed up and we can recognize it. We can learn not to be. If we didn't get hooked by desires and by aversions and those kinds of things, we wouldn't wake up. So, you start thinking about that and think about what Shinran said about, a virtuous person can be, can be liberated. How much more so an unvirtuous person like me? Well, yeah, because if I can, if I can be overwhelmed by the mist of moral defilements and then recognize it, and then realize that despite that, Buddhahood is there for me. The universe supports me, even in things like having the internet available to talk to you through, having, air to breathe, all that kind of stuff. I'm supported despite the fact that in a lot of ways, I'm not that good a person, right? We're all overwhelmed by the mist of, greed, hatred, and delusion. So anyway, that was not a particularly well organized talk, I know, but I'm kind of, I like to talk to you about these things on Wednesday nights, and then over time, maybe it'll become a little bit more something I could present formally. But I hope that you followed my train of thought a little bit and that it was useful to you in some way. So we're almost out of time. Any last questions before I close? Okay. Let's say the 4 vows. Creations are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to transform them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. Enlightened ways unsurpassable. I vow to embody it. Creations are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to transform them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. Enlightened ways unsurpassable. I vow to embody it. Creations are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to transform them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. Enlightened way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it. Friends, I respectfully remind you life and death are of supreme importance. Time swiftly passes by and opportunity is lost. Each of us must strive to awaken. Awaken, take heed, do not squander this life. Have a good night. I'll see you tomorrow if you're there. Otherwise, I'll see you next Wednesday.